hand porting. I'm going to talk about, if time allows, I'm going to talk a little bit about cam timing with the 2-valve versus the 4-valve. And I also have a little quick stuff about break-in procedure that all of these things have worked great for us. Would like to start off by saying that this is not the end-all be-all. This is just us. This is what Star Racing does. November 25th will be 40 years we've been in business, and we've learned a lot, had a lot of dynos and a lot of success, and won a lot of races, and got beat at a lot of races, got outrun a lot, but we learned a lot. So I'm going to tell you, like the insurance commercial, we know a thing or two because we've seen and done a thing or two. So I didn't invent that quote, and I didn't invent all these ideas, but it's just information we've collected over the years, and some of it's pretty interesting. So car racers, motorcycle racers, snowmobile racers, everybody that likes 4-stroke engines and acceleration contests will like some of the stuff we've learned over the years. And we have great competition out there that knows more than us and has different ideas than we do. And I promise you this is not a contest, okay? I'm just going to share with you. And this may be more for the people that don't know what we've learned in 40 years of being together as a team. And Ron has been here porting cylinder heads for us for over 30 years, and we've learned a lot about cylinder heads, he and I have together. And we've also had some great cylinder head experts work here with us over the years, and we've had a big team, and we've had a lot of people come and go through here, and a lot of success and a lot of learning. So I just want to share some of these ideas with you. Now, the CNC porting is very popular. There's a lot of companies have really great machines, and the finest CNC machines in the world are great, but they have to have a good designer, they have to have a good programmer, and a person has to be able to have a great port to start with. A CNC machine, you know, CNC stands for Computer Numerical Control. That doesn't mean end-all, be-all, smartest cylinder head porting in the world. That means that whatever you tell it to do, it will do it. If you tell it to make a really, really crummy intake port and a really crummy chamber and a really slow, terrible exhaust port, it will do exactly that. So a great CNC ported head had to start off with a great CNC design, had to come up with a human had to design it, an engineer, a racer, a cylinder head artist, somebody that knows what they're doing with a grinder created this port. Yes, nowadays there's so many great modeling programs that a man can buy or a woman can buy, and you can program them really nice ports. You can computer, it's like a Hemi head, and the reason I say that is because there's a Hemi chamber, here's an intake valve, and here's an exhaust valve, and a centrally located spark plug. This is very typical of all the Chrysler Hemis, all the Harleys. Lots of engines have this design. This is very basic. It's been around for decades and decades, and it is top fuel cars right now. Nitro funny cars, Nitro Harleys, Nitro top fuelers, Schumacher, John Force, all those teams now, they have their billet versions of this. And yes, they are CNC ported, but someone sat down a tedious amount of time designing this on a screen and then turning it, and then they have to get a programmer to turn the surfaces that they measure on this screen onto the screen and turn them into tool paths. So this is a regular Harley head here that we have ported, okay? You can see that the ports are really large. This intake right here flows a lot of air, and this exhaust port flows a lot of air. Some people want to know what this little baby hole is here in the exhaust port. That is the connection for the compression release. Electronic compression release goes in right here. It looks like a spark plug hole, but it's where electronic compression valve goes. It's an electric. It opens and closes a little electric valve right here that lets the compression escape through this port and right out the exhaust into the pipe. So when you hit the starter button, you can hear it go chip, 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 then it fires up. So you can hear it leaking through this compression relay. Now, This is hand ported, okay? That star here, Ron ported this. I want to tell you something interesting about this port work. We have templates, we have a valve size we need, and we have a really nice cutter that we use in our 30 machine. And this cutter goes in the machine, and it has lots of angles. It has a chamber finish angle, it has a chamber entry angle, it has a valve seat, it has a cut under the valve seat, another cut, and then a blend to the port seat, blend to the port angle. So all these angles are made into this one cutter, and that gives us the capability of duplicating this shape in this port. On this side, we have a template that we bolt on, and we port it to the template, and then we take the throttle body and we bolt that to the template. You know what? There are phone calls coming in. Don't these people know that I'm doing Tech Talk Tuesday between 6 and 6:30? They shouldn't call in, should they? Very distracting. But that's okay. I'm going to focus. When I was younger, I could focus a little better. Now I'm just a little bit more scatterbrained. But we bolt a template here, port this to the size we want, and we have a sample valve that is cut down to this shape, and we push it down in the guide, and we cut the port till it fits perfectly around where the seat matches the port. When we get done with that, y'all, this intake port right here, this is an amazing thing. This is Harley Davidson Hemi head that goes on. This is a water-cooled twin cam head off of 103. This port right here, from the intake manifold to the center of this guide, is 1.5 inches long, okay? The short turn, I hope you can see this. I'm gonna hook this on the valve, and I'm gonna bend this tape around this port right here to the intake manifold. It's 1.5 inches long. So it's 1.5 inches to the center of the guide, and 1.5 inches from the seat to here. Okay. Once we get this shape perfect, we get this size perfect, we get this shape perfect, and we get this size perfect, we basically go in and streamline the guide in here, and we blend all this. Now, every now and then we may add a little volume in here for some, to make a little bit more top end power. Maybe we'll make it a little smaller in here to maybe make a little more low end power. But on the exhaust, we do the same thing. We have a valve size that we use here. We use a special radius cutter on the exhaust side on our 30 machine to put the valve job in, and then we blend it back. And then we have a template that we bolt in right here to get us exactly where we want. So like if we use a D&D Borzilla, for instance, it has I think it's 1 7/8 here. Anyway, we port this to match the inside of that exhaust pipe. Then we have to have special gaskets made. And listen, y'all, we've had customers buy this stuff mail order. We do the heads for them, ship them to them. They buy D&D Borzilla, they put the engine together, and they put it together and run it, and they get it dynoed, and it might not make as much power. And I'm like, well, what happened? Then they'll bring the bike, and we'll see like a stock exhaust gasket in here, and it will be flared over and only have a 1.300 hole here, whereas it needs to be this big. And the exhaust gasket just folds up at the end of the pipe and absolutely ruins the flow capabilities of the head. That's practical application versus reading about it on the internet. Okay. Why is this not CNC ported? Well, it's only one intake port and one exhaust port. And the rear head is the same. It is a separate intake port and a separate exhaust port. So we have to have 4 scans to get this head done right, okay? In the meantime, we change our programs every year. We come up with a bigger valve size, smaller valve size. We do a different shape port. We learn more. We make more airflow. And we never have one that's, maybe if we were selling mass-produced jobs, maybe we would sell a CNC ported head. And let me tell you what the CNC part does for you. Yes, I have great friends and great competitors that have wonderful CNC machines, and they have some really good programs that they use. But I got to tell you about it. The CNC program gives us the opportunity to go out and market that buzzword, CNC heads. That means they must be done because they were done by a robot or they were done by an automatic machine. Well, they are definitely duplication correct. If the machine is correct and the programming is correct and the fixturing is correct, then the machines, the port work and the heads are identical. That makes them duplicated heads, not better heads. If your goal of the head being the best it can be is being perfectly duplicatable, then that's what you need. Also, a CNC head has limitations. If I wanted to lay the floor back to pick up a different shape, short turn radius, you can do that by hand. But if you got to send it to the customer where it has a perfect CNC finish everywhere in the port, you better not touch it with your hand because it'll look like your CNC porting wasn't good. So if we were doing high performance, high repeatability, big volume, hundreds of heads, 10s, 30, 40 heads at the same time, I would buy a CNC machine and we would duplicate the ports and send them out to the masses. But what we do here at Star Racing is we do custom work. We do custom cylinder heads. We have a thrasher kit. We have a 107 thrasher kit for the 103s. We have a 113 thrasher kit for the 110s, twin cams. We also have some great thrasher kits for the Milwaukee 8s, where we take the 107 and we make a 121 out of it. We take a 114 or a 117 Milwaukee 8 and make a 124. We also have 133s, 137s, 143 kits that we do. And all the heads are custom. They're made with our cutters, our templates, and giant valve sizes. And we do it with valve size because we take all of these heads and we try to simulate the best we can with valve size versus cam timing. Now, I see I've taken up a lot of time on that already, so let me move over to why the valve size is important in the cam timing side of it. All right, I just pulled a couple of random flow charts here. Let's see how I can make this look better without the glare. There we go. That looks a little better. All right, what I have here, wish it didn't have that much glare, but I am thankful to have lights. Okay, the top of the page, you can see that I have a 625 cam and a twin cam. I got 149 millimeter valve, which is a 1.940 that we use in the thrasher kits. 1.940 intake valve. That translates to a 149 millimeter valve, okay? A 625 lift cam, for instance, just to use an example, with 250 duration at 50 lift. This head, just pulling numbers out of some random flow charts that I found on the 4-valve Milwaukee 8s and twin cam thrashers. I just wrote down the highlights here so you can see where I got the numbers right off. And also we have the finest flow bench we can get. We bought it when they first came out. It's called a Superflow 1020. It will flow 50 inches of depression so we can more accurately simulate what the engine really sees and what the cylinder head needs and asks for when an engine is running. 10-inch flow benches are sometimes called hobby benches, but there's guys that do it for a living because they learn how to use that tool. And then there's the Superflow 600s, Superflow 300s, and those, some of the big heads like we flow on Pro Stock where we have really big valves, like a 2.8 intake valve, they may only be able to flow 400 or 500 CFM, whereas the Superflow 1020 can pull big inches on big port, so we can pull 700 we can get 700 CFM through the flow bench without doing conversion charts and conversion formulas to see what it would be if we could flow that much. And that's another story we'll talk about another day on flow benches. But if you look at 100 lift, this twin cam with a 1940 flows 52 CFM at 100 lift, 114 at 200 lift, 181 at 300 lift, 233 at 400 lift, and then 265 at 500 lift. All right, now that makes good power on a 107 twin cam. Matter of fact, it'll make 130 horsepower and 130 foot-pounds of torque. And that's what we make with our 113s. Some of them make almost 140, some of them make 135, but that's a good horsepower range for this head. Now, the 110s, the Screaming Eagle 110s, come with a bigger intake valve than this, and these flow numbers are higher, and the horsepower is a little bit higher. The M8, okay, 4-valve, it's got two. This one we flowed here has two 41 millimeter intakes. That is 1 millimeter over, two 41 millimeters instead of 149. Okay, this right here at 100 lift flows 107. That's twice what the twin cam flows. This one flows 197 versus 114. This at 300 flows 261 versus 188. Here at 400 lift, 303 CFM at 28 inches depression versus 233 CFM. And at 500 lift, a whopping 337. Now, it takes a pretty radical set of cylinder heads for a twin cam to flow 330. Matter of fact, a set of off-the-shelf B2 heads with the really big 2.2 valves, 2.2 intake valves, you may get one to 330. Bigger valves like on Bagzilla. On our red bike that we race, we have 360 to 370 CFM at 600 lift. Now, notice that at only 100 lift, we double the airflow. 200 lift, we almost double it, and we get over 100 CFM more at 300, and then 70 CFM more at 400. Okay, what does that do for us on cam timing? People ask me all the time, what's the difference in cam timing 2-valve to 4-valve? Well, this 4-valve right here only needs 230 degrees duration at 50 lift. So that's 20 degrees less duration than a twin cam. 20 degrees less duration than a twin cam. All right. Why is that important? Well, when the engine's turning over, 720 degrees of rotation for the 4 strokes, the intake stroke, the compression stroke, the power stroke, and the exhaust stroke, it takes 720 degrees rotation to do that. So much of that time is spent trying to get the air in with only one intake valve. So it takes a long time. You have to have the valve open for a long time, which cheats you out of an opportunity to make more power. The 4-valve traps more air in the same amount of time, so we can back way off on the cam timing, okay? And when we back off on the cam timing and go down from 250 duration down to 230, we have more time to make compression, we have more time to make power, and we have more time to get it in and out without wasting time with the valves open. So that's why a 2-valve and a 4-valve, that's why you have different cam timing. Okay, let me look and see what else is important about that. I wanted to tell you about break-in procedure a little bit, okay? I'm gonna change this camera angle to where I can be involved a little bit. Maybe I can do this without making y'all fall down. See how I can do that. All right, there we go. And my shirt's backwards. That's perfect. It don't matter. Y'all don't need my shirt. Okay, I've got a couple things about break-in procedure. I was going to tell y'all. The break-in procedure, guy just asked me whatever happened to Sapphire. Well, we built it and got it running, and it made a lot of power, and we sold it to a fella in Illinois, and he's run it all year and enjoyed it, and he's coming back to get some more work done, get a set of B2 heads put in it. So we're excited and thankful for that opportunity. Let's see how I can make that look better. Maybe I can sit down. Anybody get dizzy watching me yet? There we go. All right. So somebody's asking me about this cam with this engine and this cam with that engine. Yeah, there's 100, 200 different combinations that we're not going to cover right now because every one of them's different. Every size engine's different. But it has a lot to do with what you're wanting to do. And people call every day. Y'all listen to this real quick before we get off cylinder heads. What does your heads flow? I want to know why you need to know. Because you're paying for it and you want a number. Okay, what number do you want? Do you want it to be at what lift and what size valve and what depression do you want it at? And I'm wondering, I get fussed at for being that guy. I'm like, okay, well, why do you want to know what the head flows? I mean, what? I don't get it. What does that tell you? It flows 200, flows 300, flows 350, flows 400. We can get you any number you want. With the port has to be the right size, it has to be the right shape, it has to have a right size valve, and you got to turn the flow bench up high enough to have the high enough depression, and you also have to have the valve open far enough to get the flow you want. So a nice Thrasher 103, we put a 107 kit in, we'll get those heads to flow 280 at 500 lift at 28 inches. If you want a Milwaukee 8 that'll make 150 horsepower, it's going to have to flow about 325 to 330. It really depends on your horsepower goals. And if you want a Pro Stocker, we can get it to flow 700 CFM. So Pro Stockers run over 1 inch lift. The street bikes run less lift because it's a balance of parts and reliability. If you have a horsepower goal that you want, then I can tell you from 40 years experience how big the valves have to be, how big the cam has to be. And I mean, it's not just get on the internet and look around and find all your pieces, because it doesn't make a great combination, because there's too many moving parts and too many procedures and too much balancing of combinations and compromises, like compression ratio and valve lift and spring sizes and rocker arm ratios and RPM and valve sizes and valve to valve clearance and piston to head clearance and piston to valve clearance. I mean, it's such a balance that has to be done just right. So if you go online and just buy all the coolest and biggest parts, you'll make the least amount of power. It's got to be a combination that's matched. Now, somebody's asking, can you port a head too big? Yeah, I guess so, but we port them the biggest they'll go with the valve size that will fit the bore. So if you put the biggest, like Bagzilla, it has the biggest valves that will fit in the bore. If you race Pro Stock car or Pro Stock motorcycle, the valves will be the biggest it will fit. And if it doesn't make enough power in your RPM range where you want to run it, you set the cam timing to close the valve where you want it on the intake, and you open the exhaust valve where you want it in order to tailor the horsepower curve to suit your RPM range. There's no one size fits all. Cam specs on Bagzilla, somebody asked me. Well, there's 5 different cams we've run in it since we started. And I don't even know what that number is. What would be the spec you would want? Lift, we started off at 680, then we went to 700, 720, 740. We tried 3 different rock arm ratios. We tried cam timing from 245, 255, 265, duration at 50. We tried 5 different closing numbers. We tried 5 different exhaust opening numbers, trying to move the power band into the range I was running it down the drag strip. The engine seems to live really well between 7,500 and 5,500 where I run through the years. I rip it to 75, fall back to about 6, rip it to 75, fall back to 6. So I'm targeting the power in that range. What does it make at 2,000? Not enough. What does it make at 3,000? Not enough. Not for touring, not for cruising, not for cross country. That's a way different cam. That's a way different port size, valve size. That's a way different package. Compression ratio is lower. You got to target what your goal is. Everybody wants to ride a Pro Stocker to Sturgis and back. I'm sorry, man, it's not possible. A man needs 2 motorcycles. He needs one to get to Sturgis and back or Daytona and back, and he needs another one to hot rod around town and go drag racing and outrun his buddies. That's 2 bikes. If you want to do it with 1 motorcycle, then you're going to have a serious compromise. It's going to have the power where you like it. If it's too high for you, get a different cam. If it's too low for you, get a different cam. We can tune it. We can make it work. Real quick before we run out of time, and I'll have to do the break-in later. I posted time slips. I did a whole board on time slips the other day. So I'll reverse this so you can see it. Maybe it'll help. But I got to roll. I kept telling y'all about 60-foot time, 330 time, 1/8 mile time, 1/8 mile an hour, 1,000-foot ET, quarter-mile ET, a mile an hour. So I marked this for you. 162 60-foot time, 408 330 time. That's from the starting line to this clock. And I drew all that on a board the other day. So if you go back to YouTube and look at the star pages on Tech Talk Tuesday, I have a big breakdown on what all this does. And then it goes 0 to 120 miles an hour in 6.1 seconds in the 660. It ran 1,000 foot in 7.8. This is Bagzilla ran 943 at 145 miles an hour. So it was going 145 at the finish line at the 1,320 mark. It just so happens 1,320 is the quarter mile. Okay? You're going to have a lot of questions. There's a lot of stuff yet to learn. And I got a lot to cover with y'all. But I just wanted to share some of this information with you and tell your friends and everybody to tune in Tuesdays. I'm going to try to keep doing this as long as y'all keep following and watching. And Monica says she's taking these episodes and moving them over to YouTube. So on Facebook, my personal page here where it's live, and then on Star Racing page, Star Power page, I'm sorry. I've been working at both of them places for 40 years, so they're the same place. I call it Star Racing Power. Thank everybody. Time's up. Oh yeah, 6:30. Time's up. Thanks for watching. Appreciate everybody following. Appreciate all you guys asking the great questions. Please keep sending the questions because I will answer them eventually, especially if more than one guy wants to know the same thing. It's a lot of info. Got 40 years worth of experience to share. And one last thing, why we need a CNC machine. It's because of something like this. This is Mitch Brown's monster head for pro stock motorcycles, pro mod motorcycles. It's used around the world. It's a very complicated part. It's legal for NHRA 2020, and this machine, this head needs a CNC machine. I don't want to port it by hand, and neither does Ron. But there it is. Have fun. Love each other because we got trouble going on around, and all of us love this gearhead stuff. So let's share that with each other and appreciate each other like I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much. God bless.